Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of our industry. Welcome back, Construction Champions, to another episode. I'm your host, or I am your conversation facilitator. See, man, we changed this months ago, and I just messed it up again. It just goes back to, like I always say, it's repetition, it's putting in reps, but sometimes you're still not going to get it right. So let's try that one more time. I am your conversation facilitator, Ron Nussbaum, and I am the one that has the amazing privilege and pleasure to bring you amazing minds from around and within the construction industry to have conversations on how you become that construction champion that you're meant to be. And like I just said, you don't get to just listen to Ron Nussbaum ramble about my personal opinions for 30 minutes. We bring on amazing guests. And today is no different. I am super excited for today's conversation. Cameron, it is great to have you here today.
Ron, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into it, why don't you introduce yourself to all those construction champions listening out there?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Cameron Bishop. I am what is referred to as a lower middle market investment banker, meaning we primarily represent business owners who want to sell their companies. And they generally have $1 million to $10 million in what's called EBITDA profits. That's a sweet spot that is underserved by big investment banks, and many traditional business brokers don't have the level of sophistication or the ability to market that kind of a business on a nationwide basis. Our firm Raincatcher is based out of Denver, Colorado, but we've been virtual for, almost 11 years now. I'm based in the Kansas City area. As an investment banker, my background's a little bit unusual. I actually started my career as an advertising copywriter after getting a degree in journalism from the University of Missouri. But I grew up in a small technical publishing company, which published over the years, we grew from 7 to 100 technical magazines, everything from high tech to agriculture, and a fair amount in construction services, mining construction, rocks and quarries, electrical contractors, etc. So I had the opportunity, as we grew, to acquire almost 50 different companies. And I saw a tremendous number of mistakes that these business owners made. So after the COVID period, I finished a contract to turn around a $60 million charitable business. And I got very bored, and I said, well, I need to do something. What do I like to do? Well, I like buying and selling companies. So I partnered with Raincatcher. I'm a partner in the firm and a managing director, and I run our specialized practice in construction industry related companies, everything from home services, business services, construction parts and materials, to heavy construction, road construction, pavement preservation, etc.
I love it. This is going to be a great conversation. I already have questions in my head, but before we dive into those, I have to ask you the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
For me, that answer is very simple. Obviously, I look at it from the standpoint of value creation in these businesses. So this is a characteristic we see in virtually any kind of business. But again, in my practice around construction companies, I see it almost universally. And it's also a human nature factor. So the thing is that the vast majority of business owners spend 95% of their time or more working in their business. versus the difference for value creation at the time they want to someday exit their company. They need to work on their business. And a real construction champion is able to balance both of those factors and to have a true understanding of it's not just about trying to generate revenue every day, avoid paying taxes on your income, and taking the distributions home at the end of the year. It's about establishing goals on what's your end game. Everybody will leave a company someday. They can either do it by choice or at a horizontal position, but they want to create value. And there are different tactics used between working in the business versus working on the business.
I love that. When you've seen it from a lot of different perspectives, how much more worse is that in the construction industry? When you look at other industries and people working in the business instead of on it, I just have a feeling we're a lot worse at it than most industries. Is that accurate, or is it pretty bad all around?
Well, it's fairly universal, but I will say that it's a little bit more of a factor in construction industry related businesses. And the key reason is, well, for example, Ron, when I'm on a call with the business owner who is my client, when we're representing them to sell them, I would say 9 times out of 10, he or she is talking to me from their cell phone, sitting in their truck, usually at a job site, because a lot of times they need to be hands-on, or if they're not physically touching the labor or the work being done, they're overseeing it. And when they're in that capacity, that's much less time that they have available to handle some of the general management requirements of the business, and think through strategy and long-term goals and some of those things. They're going to be critical for them as part of their end game. So that's where we do see an additional challenge in construction industry related businesses.
Yeah, for me, we just love that stuff. And like, that has always been, to me, it's not hard to necessarily move your way out of it, but we're so emotionally tied to it that it makes it harder, instead of just saying, hey, we're building this business and these guys are better. Like, when I realized these guys were better out there in the field when I wasn't around than when I was there jamming them up with what I thought, that's when things really started to happen. And we always push the stuff you're talking about to the end of the day, when we're beat, when we're trashed, when we're just, our brain isn't functioning correctly. And that's when we're going to try to do the highest level activities. And that is backwards. That's not how we should be looking at this.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly a critical part of it, but yeah, it's a much more holistic picture as a top level manager and or owner. And what are the other factors we see? And I'll give you a real world example. I literally, Ron, about 10 minutes before you and I got on this call, I was on with one of my current clients. I'm representing the owners of a plumbing, electrical, low voltage, and generator distribution and installation business for new residential construction. And this is a fantastic business. Husband and wife. Husband is a master plumber, amazing human being. In fact, today he was talking to us he has a small ranch in Texas, and he was up there hunting, I think elk was his target today, but they started from one truck in their garage. But because he is so respected in the industry and does such top quality work, that builders saw his truck at one location and they said, hey, can you do some work for us? And this business exploded, and they are now a company that's in the tens of millions of dollars. But one of the factors in this working in your business versus working on your business is because of his reputation. New builders that want to come on board and have him do business with them, they often feel they need to talk with him. To his credit, he's built out a really strong senior management team but there's still that reputation factor
Mm.
that draws him away from some of these other management level initiatives to take for value creation.
Yeah, but he must be doing halfway decent that he's out elk hunting. So I love it, man. I love it. It provides a lot of clarity there for our listeners. I want to talk about something that you brought up earlier about how you didn't say how wide. I just in my mind heard, man, that is quite the gamut when you talked about the kind of companies that you represent in the construction space. I think a lot of times we think of that there's really niches of these businesses that are sellable within the construction industry. And you listed off a wide gamut of those. So could you educate our listeners on the fact that it's not necessarily like what the business exactly does, it's the business itself?
Sure. Well, you're absolutely correct, Ron. When you refer to the construction industry, that is an extremely broad term. So you can think of, for example, as I mentioned, we represent owners of road construction companies. I sold an 800-acre aggregate mining operation with 3 asphalt plants. They do what's called mill and fill asphalt on 200 or 300 linear miles of roads in Arizona every year. So that's one kind of construction business. But we recently closed on a deal that was a fascinating business, husband and wife owned in Colorado, and that they're a kind of a dealer slash distributor for custom built windows and doors made by 3 European manufacturers that go into like Aspen mega mansions that cost 20 to 100 million. So that's a kind of a construction products kind of business. Then, as I mentioned a second ago, my plumbing electrical, they are new install type of company. We represented a family business that manufactured laminated countertops and distributes and installs cabinetry in new residential construction. But we work with re-roofing companies, HVAC companies, electrical, any of these kinds of construction companies all fall under sort of niche segments of the overall construction industry. And there are certain sectors of the market which are particularly hot and have been for some time. And if any of your listeners are in HVAC, plumbing, or electrical, they already know the answer to this. If an HVAC business owner called me today and said, "Hey, Cameron, I want to sell my HVAC company. Would you represent me?" Depending on the size of the business and some of its unique characteristics, I've probably got 20, 25 firms listed in my database that are out looking actively every day to buy these HVAC and plumbing and electrical companies. They have kind of a unique characteristic that makes them attractive in most cases, especially if they're doing service level work as opposed to new construction install work. On the service level work, most of them they sell maintenance contracts. And that's a beautiful thing to buyers of these businesses because it creates predictable revenue and profits. And it's referred to as reoccurring revenue. So it's a very attractive market sector. But any of these construction companies that have a substantial or exclusive focus on maintenance and repair are highly attractive because buyers see them as recession resistant, because no matter what the economy is doing or where the interest rates are, stuff breaks, stuff wears out, and need to be replaced or repaired. So that's the reason why there's a bit of a buyer feeding frenzy in certain parts of these industries. Now, at the same time today, because of interest rates and kind of across the board right now nationwide, new build permits are down pretty substantially, particularly in some of the hottest markets. I've had probably a dozen residential construction home builders, either large development, tract homes, or custom. And right now it would be extremely difficult to find a buyer for those kind of businesses because of the unpredictable nature of the market today, some of the volatility in raw materials, interest rates, etc.
Hmm. Do you think HVAC and stuff will ever cool down? I think we've watched it in the industry for years, and it's like it's just a hot commodity. But now like private equity is buying them from each other now. Like,
Well, that's exactly right. They do what are called leveraged roll-ups. And again, I mentioned I spent 35 years of my career running companies, doing acquisitions in the media industry. And what we would do is we'd buy one big company, then we'd go out and acquire a lot of smaller businesses that were a strategic fit for our platform. That's called a leveraged roll-up. And that's what's occurring in HVAC, plumbing, and electrical in particular today, because a lot of these buyers are aggregating those three, what used to be unique disciplines, into larger platform companies. So they buy a lot of these, they consolidate them. Some will brand under a consolidated brand name, some let the owners of the business continue to use their existing name, but they roll them up and they'll package them in generally a 3 to 7 year period. They will resell that platform and the next buyer will perpetuate that. And besides the reoccurring revenue factor, the other thing that comes into play that makes these businesses attractive is that most of them are independently owned by business professionals. Many of them are second or third generation as well. And in the U.S. today, the statistic is 10,000 baby boomers turn age 65 every day. And in the U.S., baby boomer generation owns an inordinate percentage of all the small businesses owned privately or family owned in the country. And it's a national phenomenon that their children don't want to come into the family business. So when they're starting to think about retiring, they don't really have another choice but to sell. And these buyers and private equity firms realize this, and they're creating that exit avenue for these owners. And I know there's probably some of them are listening today. They're saying, I'm getting inundated with calls every day of the week from somebody trying to buy my business. And I always say, you know what? That's going to be true, but just remember this. If there's one buyer interested in your business, there are many. And these buyers love nothing more than to be in a non-competitive bidding marketplace. Because again, when I was buying companies, I never once paid top dollar for a company I was acquiring when I wasn't competing against at least one other bidder.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's one of the best positions to be in. I've been there before acquiring a company, and you put all the eggs in your basket to be able to do what you want to do with them. We kind of touched on it, but with the consolidation talk, and you're the pro in this, but I have this working theory of what I'm seeing happen in the construction industry. And like we talked about the HVAC, we're watching the roofing industry to start to get hot. But the construction industry is one of the only industries in America that has never seen major consolidation. It's really stayed independent, like you said, first, second, third generation owners. These are small business, the backbone of America. And I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the construction industry get consolidated. I think the writing's on the wall, but this is why I love having experts on here, because this is what I observe. You're in this word. What do you think about that from you eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff?
I do. I do for several reasons. One, because as I saw so many business owners make so many mistakes when they tried to sell their company. They didn't get proper representation. And this, I appreciate you having me on because this is a passion for me. Obviously, it's my profession and I absolutely love it. I love helping these business owners, but part of my goal is to get the word out about what these owners need to think about. And I agree with you completely, Ron. This trend of consolidation in, I'll call it broadly defined home services, business services, construction-related companies will continue to consolidate for the reasons we've talked about. Baby boomers aging out, parts of the industries have reoccurring revenue. We're seeing the same kind of a scenario in landscaping businesses, pool supply, maintenance, repair, construction companies, pest control companies, any of these businesses which touch on either a business-to-business service function or a business-to-consumer service function. So yeah, this is going to be a continuing trend across many of these specialized industries. And also, one of the questions I always get from a lot of outsiders is, well, how is AI affecting this business? And right now, other than possibly some back office efficiencies that you'll see maybe on their bidding processes or managing their workforces, the beauty of these industries is, man, they still need people. They're still hands-on. There's guys and gals who get their fingernails dirty, and that's not replaceable. But at the same time, one of the other drivers that I hear every single day across any industry is there's tremendous frustration, especially where a labor force, particularly like a blue-collar labor force, is required, is everyone tells me they can't get help. And it's a big frustration for these business owners. And sometimes it's the motivator for why they finally get tired and decide to go ahead and sell.
Yeah, that's a whole topic on itself. the people aspect of this, as you know, you've been around business long enough to know that's its own topic. So for all listeners, besides picking up the phone and talking to you, what are some stuff that they should be thinking about? Because like we talked about in our conversation before we got on here, like selling your business is not just something you wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this, and then the transaction happens next week. Very, very rarely. Let's say it can happen, but that's not typically the case. So for all listeners out there that are thinking, I think I might be ready to move on, or they're having these thoughts, what are your recommendations for them?
Yeah, that's good. This is the key question that I like to try to communicate. So one of our challenges is, unfortunately, we do get a lot of business owners call us or that are referred to us from other happy past clients who literally woke up and said, that's it, it's time to sell. And that's the worst possible scenario. In a perfect world, again, they need to create kind of a life plan. How long do they want to work in the business? If it's 3 years or 5 years, that's not too early to start thinking about preparing the business for sale. Ideally, we'd like to see our clients have 2 to 3 years of advanced planning. But there are 4 key factors we see that they need to be aware of. One is we see so many of these construction companies that have really poor to terrible accounting. And it takes a long time. When they come to us, many of them, the accounting is so poor, we can't sell them. So we have to recommend them to, CPAs and accounting experts. And that takes a lot of time to get their numbers corrected. And most of these owners do their accounting to what's called a cash basis, but buyers need to see it completed on an accrual basis because buyers borrow money from banks and banks all require accrual-based accounting. So that's the first step to take. Accounting is critical for success in these companies. Second is identifying what the owner's role is in the company. The term for it is owner dependency. How dependent is the business on the owner? So if the owner goes out and gets hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow, what happens to the company? Do they have a successor in place? Could they put one in place? Or to what degree does the business need that owner to be there to be successful? If they're the key source of knowledge in the business, that's a challenge. It's at least a yellow flag for buyers. And if all the customers contact the owner, that's an even bigger red flag, which means typically when owners sell, they're thinking about retiring or going to do something different. But these buyers, while they're willing to take the risk of buying the business, they ironically are also very risk averse. And these owner dependency factors are red flags or yellow flags for them, and they may require the owner, if they're going to buy his or her business, to stay on for a minimum of a year, 2 years, could be as much as 5 years. So you've got accounting, owner dependency, and the next key factor is what's called customer dependency. So when we're marketing a business and we put out an anonymous teaser email and we make phone calls nationwide to represent and sell our company's businesses, and when these buyers say, hey, I'm interested in this business, we do a video call with them to sort of interview and vet them. And the first question they ask is, why is the owner selling? And is he or she willing to stay? The second question they ask is, what percentage of total revenue comes from any one customer? And the key measurement is 20%. So many buyers have a hard and fast rule, particularly private equity, that if a single customer represents more than 20% of total revenue, many of them will just walk away. If they are still willing to try to buy the business, they will almost always pay less for the company to mitigate the risk of losing that if that customer gets lost, or they will structure the deal terms in a much less attractive way. So neither of those is in the best interest of the owner who is selling the company. And once they've got their accounting in place, they need to actually pay attention and learn how to read their income statement, because these buyers want to know what their gross profit margin is. And every industry has an average. So the buyers are measuring whether the selling company is at the average gross profit margin for that industry, whether they're above or below it. If they're above it, that often could draw a premium on the exit value. If they're below it, it's a yellow flag, and some buyers will pass on the deal because of that. So those are the real key factors. There could be many others unique to an individual business. Like, for example, with an HVAC, the percentage of total revenue coming from reoccurring revenue and maintenance contracts is just one example. But those are the big four that owners really need to focus on and understand. And they almost all take planning in terms of a year, 2 years, 3 years before they want to run a transaction process. And if an owner came to me and they said, Cameron, sell my company, and we signed an engagement with them, they need to understand that the national average time to sell a company and have a wire transfer hit their bank account, doesn't matter what the industry is or pretty much the deal size. There are some exceptions, but it's generally a 9 to 10 month process.
See, this is why I love having experts on here, because if we would have surveyed our listeners, there's nobody would have been getting all four of those. Like, that was gold. And then how you break it down with the yellow flags and stuff, and how the buyers are thinking, and why that mind shift is owners. If you want to start moving towards selling your business, your mindset has to shift around the business and what everything looks like within it. Man, that was all, Cameron. That was amazing.
Well, thank you. I hope it's helpful.
Is there demographics throughout the United States that, I get, this is more of a personal question. So for any of our listeners that don't want the answer to this, tune out, I guess. But I think this is a really good question. Is there certain demographics in the geographical areas in the United States that are hotter markets than others, or is it pretty across the board, or all people looking to acquire companies in, say, a more southern atmosphere than a northern, or vice versa, or East Coast, West Coast?
That's actually a great question. So there's two answers. The types of buyers that buy the kinds of companies that your listeners have are primarily private equity firms, or what are referred to as family office. A family office is an individual or a family that has mega cajillions of dollars, so much so that they actually have a team of professionals that help them invest their money, and they like to diversify. And many of them love buying small to mid-size American companies. That is actually a growing phenomenon. There are also what are referred to as independent sponsors. So that's a professional or an individual who has found financial backing, usually from one or two sources, ultra high net worth individuals, or could be coming also from a family office, or some private equity firms have an offshoot to sponsor some of these independent sponsors. And in any of these cases, they all have what are referred to as an investment thesis. So they create certain target criteria, could be industry, but it also could be geographic sector. So for example, in the heavy industry construction area where we're representing road resurfacing, pavement preservation types of companies, mining operations, there are certain ones of those who have defined their geographic target area as, say, southwest or southeast or northwest, for example, or mountain states, but that's primarily due to their own operating efficiencies, because we sold a company to a firm out of Salt Lake City. They were focused on the mountain states and the Southwest because that's where they had operations. They didn't have to want to fly their management team to Miami, Florida. Similarly, I got an email this morning from a private equity firm rolling up landscaping companies, but they're totally focused on, I think they listed 6 or 7, maybe 8 southeastern states where they want to consolidate their whole landscaping platform. So it can vary quite a bit by industry. Obviously, it's a high-tech deal. They're going to be wanting to look at deals in Northern California or around Charlotte, or where some of the high-tech hubs are. So it does vary by industry. They also vary by, obviously, the type of market, but also the size of the company. So they set parameters. I can't look at any business with less than $2 million in revenue or more than $50 million in revenue, whatever it might be.
Awesome, man. This has been a great conversation. I have loved it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was looking at the site prior to the review, you, or at least your company, also helps people get ready for this path. It's not just and it looks like afterwards. So like prepare, exit, and then the afterwards. It looks like you guys really are there to assist throughout the process, not just the time that you decide you might want to sell your business.
Yeah, we go through. So if a listener called me and said, "Hey, Cam, I'm thinking about selling my company," we'll ask them some basic questions, and then we will sign an NDA for them so that we maintain confidentiality. We're hyper focused on respecting confidentiality because these owners never want the word to get out to their competitors, their customers, or heaven forbid, their employees. We ask them to upload into our secure digital data room 3 years of financials. One of my partners is a licensed CPA, and he spent 15 years in the audit practice with KPMG. We will analyze their financials. We don't charge anything for this. There's no obligation. And we will come back to that owner with a brief presentation and say, here's what we're seeing. Here's what we anticipate, what we refer to as your adjusted EBITDA profit to be. And based on our experience and our access to databases on what companies sell for, here is a range that we believe your company would sell in. And we are an under promise, over deliver firm. So we would never say, we're going to sell your business for $1 kajillion just to get them to engage with us. So we tell them, here's a low end of the range. Here's what is the likely midpoint. and here's the high end, because this is a singular decision in the life of most of these business owners. We try to provide them that the information they need in order to make that life-changing decision. But one of our differentiators is if they say, yeah, let's go, we would sign an engagement. Then we put together marketing materials. We identify strategic buyer lists, where we don't just find a buyer, give them under a letter of intent and hand them off. We literally work hand in glove with that owner through the entire process, because 98% of them have never been through it. It's extremely emotional. It's a roller coaster ride. It's a job on top of a job. And sometimes we jokingly say that half of our job is not just being a typical hard-nosed investment banker. It's what I refer to as Dr. Phil work, by helping them to manage through this very stressful, emotionally taxing process. And that, to me, is actually, Ron, the most rewarding part of the job.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you're helping somebody a lot of times move on from their life's work, what they have done their entire life. So, man, Cameron, this has been an amazing episode. Like I said, I love it. For all of our listeners, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about how to work with you, what's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, thank you. 3 easy ways. They can email me directly at cameron.bishop@raincatcher.com. Our company website is www.raincatcher.com, or they could easily look me up on LinkedIn at Cameron Bishop.
Awesome, Cameron. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
It was my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me.
Awesome. All right, Construction Champions, another episode in the bag, where we always talk about changing the mindset. And what Cameron gave you was a roadmap to help you change the mindset around your business, but not just to change it, to start to move your business in a trajectory where one day you could have options. Like, I know we've got listeners sitting there saying, I'm not building this to sell it. I'm not building it to do this or that. This is just what I want to do. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again on here, is like, life happens, and you're better off being prepared for if something happens in that moment where you do need to go through this process that you thought you would never go through. Having your mindset and building a business in a way that is sellable is, for one, it's going to bring you a lot more peace. You're not going to deal with as much crap. Even if you never sell it and you give it to your kids, you know, it'll be a better business for your kids. Like, just think about it that way. When I always say change the mindset, Cameron laid out how to change the mindset around your business, and actually the stuff to pinpoint look at. You know, if this is what the highest educated buyers are looking for when they buy a business, don't you think it's probably pretty important? It might be something that you need to have your finger on top of, even if you're never going to sell your business. Like, that's how I hear that. Like, when I hear this is the 4 things that they're looking for, I hear, if I'm not paying attention to this in my business, like, there's something wrong, because these are guys that professionally buy, sell, and grow businesses, and these are the 4 things they're paying attention to. So I would rewind it and go back and listen to those 4 things and be like, do I understand that how I should? And am I practicing that in my business every day? So, Construction Champions, go be the champion you were meant to be.